Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Just Mets podcast. My name is Andrew Claudio. That is Rich MacLeod. We're here to talk about everything that's happened in the last week in the New York Mets world, which was a whole lot of nothing, technically. Some things happened to other teams. So this is going to be a bit of a rumor potpourri scuttlebutt, if you want to go that direction. Rich, how are you? I actually have a big question for you, but we'll start with the how are you?
I'm good. I'm ready to talk about some Mets scuttlebutt, I guess.
Yes, let's talk about the butt.
What is your big question?
Your Christmas tree is still up behind you. What is your rule on that?
I don't have a hard standing rule. It's generally when I feel like it's time. Though this year it's getting picked up by the service that delivered it to my house. So it will be getting, by the time this podcast airs, it will be gone. It goes out in the morning. So this is my last night of having a Christmas tree. Generally, with my family living in Connecticut and then my girlfriend living in Philly, I only spend half of December at home. So I don't get to enjoy the Christmas tree very long. So I like to keep it up a little bit longer in January. Last year it was up till February, which was too long. It was the driest thing on the planet at that point, and probably
It's a massive real tree. It's a real tree.
The real tree.
Got it.
So it's probably a massive fire hazard as well. Yeah, this year January 12th is the get rid of date.
Got it. We're recording this on January 11th. It was a simple question because I may or may not have been asking Mrs. Claudio the same question for the past week. So when do you want to take down all the Christmas stuff? And it's January 1st, January 2nd. So I didn't know if you could, in solidarity, tell me with her, let's leave it up for as long as I want to.
Yeah. I'm more of that of just January is kind of like depressing. There's not really much to look forward to in the month itself. So I think there's nothing wrong with hanging on to the remnants of the holiday spirit for as long as you can.
I completely respect it. And I think if there was still something under the tree, I could get behind leaving it up a little bit longer in January. And I think as Mets fans, we're all hoping that maybe a Kyle Tucker shows up under that tree, or a Cody Bellinger, or maybe a pitcher of sorts.
That was an A+ transition, my friend.
Thank you, sir. Unfortunately, nothing official has happened for the New York Mets. There's been some buzz, and we'll just kind of start there. I'm actually going to turn things over to you, Rich, and just ask, because like the Mets and Kyle Tucker, there's so much. Like Jim Duquette said a thing, and then like Joel Sherman had a thing, and I want to let you give the full context to people. I got to be honest with you, Rich. I'm going to start here. I'm at the point, and we'll talk about Bregman a little later. Bregman going to the Cubs broke me for how, like, nobody knows anything. We can hear what people are telling us, what they're hearing, but like Buster Olney put out that whole, like, here's what we're hearing at ESPN. And he had his whole team vetted and multiple contributors. And throughout the entire Alex Bregman conversation or paragraph, not once was the Cubs mentioned. And then middle of the Bears-Packers game, he just signs with the Cubs for $175. Yeah, I'm at the point where we can talk about the rumors and the latest on blank. I'm beginning to wonder if we're all just kind of being led astray by this lazy river of rumors and news, you know?
Nobody knows what the hell is going on this offseason, especially around the Mets, but just in general, it seems like nobody has a firm grasp on any of this stuff. I mean, did you ever hear the Cubs and Bregman ever? Did you think about them at all? When you texted me that on Saturday, I was like, well, that came out of absolutely nowhere. Yep. And yeah, it gets to the point where you're like, if you hear one thing, I'm like, do I almost start believing the opposite of that is true? Because this offseason's just been really odd. Like I'll even say myself that like for 3-4 days, I had heard Kyle Tucker met with the Mets in person. And then today I heard from a different person, it never happened. So like the crossing of This is why I don't put this stuff out on Twitter either. Like, I'm not an insider. But this is just like to speak to the fact that like nobody knows what's going on right now. And like even the leaks are contradicting each other. And yeah, I will say in this past week with the Tucker stuff heating up, it's definitely piquing my interest. If we were to have done a official confidence meter on Tucker when we recorded last week, it'd probably be anywhere between 0 to like 4 or 5%, I would say. And I think you would be at 0, or as low as we allow it to go on the confidence meter.
I'm probably at like 10%, only because it would actually make a lot of sense for this offseason if something I had thought had no chance of happening, just did not see coming, happens. Something like the Mets deciding to go out of their comfort zone to give Tucker not just the 1+1 or the short-term AAV. Like they actually offer him like an 8-year deal to get the job done. Like not just Kyle Tucker will be a Met for a year. It'll be Kyle Tucker's a Met for a long time. That's the type of thing that would come out of nowhere. I would put it at around 10% though, if we did an official confidence meter.
But that in itself is 10 times higher than you were. I think we talked about this loosely right around the holidays, and you were at 1%. So that is progress. And also, I also just want to, like, for people who aren't constantly on Twitter like we are, filling in what we're actually talking about here. Yeah, it kind of started on Tuesday of last week with Jim Duquette, which you mentioned earlier. He had put out a tweet that said, quote, "A league source just told me that the Mets, the Dodgers, and the Blue Jays are the most aggressive suitors for Kyle Tucker. Nothing appears to be imminent, but there is some distance between the other teams reportedly interested in these main three." We had John Heyman put out a video, I think on Friday or Saturday, just kind of adding to the fuel that they're legitimately, seriously interested in Tucker. And then even Joel Sherman posted on Saturday for the New York Post. He wrote, "I believe the Mets are very much in play for significant free agents such as Kyle Tucker and or Framber Valdez, and are seeing if the players' markets and their tolerance blend, or if they will have to focus elsewhere for an outfielder, starter, and a reliever or two." That's kind of where we are. So 3 major, people in baseball really linking the Mets and Kyle Tucker together more than we've heard the entire offseason. Anytime he's come up before, it's always kind of been like, yeah, like if he falls into their price range, like maybe they'll be, what's the term they've been using? Opportunistic. Yeah, I mean, I'd throw it back to you of just what are your thoughts on all this? Has it changed your opinion that much about the Tucker situation? Has it at least opened your mind to the fact that maybe this is a little bit possible?
It's a little bit possible in the sense that the Mets haven't done anything else to take them out of the Tucker sweepstakes. Like they haven't made a trade for a center fielder. They haven't put out the breadcrumbs that they're not interested. Mm-hmm. They haven't signed Cody Bellinger. I know we're going to talk about the impasse he's now. I guess we should just say what happened with Cody Bellinger. Buster only reported that the Yankees were hoping to re-sign veteran outfielder Cody Bellinger, who played for them last season, but are now operating under the assumption that Bellinger is going to sign elsewhere. The team is now seeking additions elsewhere, sources added. Should also add the report that came out tonight from our buddy Pat Ragazzo. They've reached out to the Cubs about Nico Horner, who may now be available with the Cubs signing Alex Bregman. Apparently the Yankee offer is around 5 years, $30 million per season. So around the Pete Alonso contract. He and Boris believe, I think they said something along the lines of they want 6 or 7 at around that AAV. So good luck. See, I say good luck, Boris, and then I see Bregman's contract. So I can't fully tell him good luck trying to get that, because he might get it from somebody, The
AAV though, that they're asked, I saw that they wanted 7 years at like up to 37 a year, which is like a $250 million contract.
Yeah, it's just not happening. Yeah. Look, to just answer your question, I don't think the Mets are going to sign Kyle Tucker. If they do, I don't want to go to the extreme of all is forgiven, because like I still would like them to address the pitching on this team, but the lineup's better. I'm at the point, if they get Kyle Tucker, the lineup's probably better. And you know what? So's your run prevention. So you did both. If you go get Kyle Tucker, it's going to require David Stearns to do something he's never done on his own, and it's go out of his comfort zone. He does it. I'll give him all the credit in the world, and let's go to work. Let's go get some pitching. Let's see if the better defense leads to better performances from the pitchers that you got here. Like, I'm all for it. But this is how you flex your muscles if you want to be serious in a big market team. Go get Kyle Tucker. I would add it to a lesser extreme. If you can't get Kyle Tucker, go get Cody Bellinger, because you also that would also be a good signing, even if I have some hesitations if this is where the contract is headed. But look, what was our walkaway number for Pete? 5,150. If it's 6,180, are you doing that for Cody Bellinger?
No.
6,170.
I don't think I'm giving him 6 years. I also don't think the Mets would give him double.
I don't think so either. I think they're offering him like 6 for. I think 6,150 would make more sense for what the Mets might offer him. Like a 6-year, similar money, but it's longer. It's a lower AAV. I don't know, man. I would like them to get aggressive with one of these free agents. My biggest fear, my number one fear of all of this month of January news and rumors, right, is that we hear all the interest and the they're in on reports about the Mets, and we're looking up, and Tyrone Taylor's in center field on opening day with Carson Benj in left field, and I'm gonna say the magic word, Rich. Lars Nootbaar is in the mix as like a fourth outfielder. That's my fear. Is that's the plan. That's what ends up being the plan.
You had to say Lars Nootbaar.
Can I ask you, just from a logistics standpoint, Kyle Tucker's a right fielder, has largely played right field in his career. Where do you think they're signing him to play?
Left field.
You don't think they've had a conversation? The master flip translations about Soto being willing to move positions should they ask him to? You don't think they may go to him and say, hey, you mind playing left or a different position?
I don't think so. Some of those quotes, he also said, like, I'm only in year 2 of 15, so I don't think we're at that point yet of moving positions. Can I
add on to the year 2 of 15 thing? He said 2 of 15, not 2 of 5. So anybody like me that was mildly concerned that 5-year opt-out might actually be an opt-out where he goes someplace else. No, he, in his mind, he's signed for 15 years. He's a New York Met for 15 years. I also agree Kyle Tucker's probably your left fielder, which means Carson Benj playing center field could be interesting. I agree that left field is probably where they're looking at to put Kyle Tucker.
Yeah. And it, like you said, if they have to put Benj in center, like, look, you got to make sacrifice somewhere, and there's nothing that says Benj can't be decent in center field. It's just people think he'll be better in left. But yeah, if you're taking Brandon Nimmo, who good offensively, although not in clutch situations last year, and has been declining on defense, especially if you look at certain metrics, quite badly. If you take Brandon Nimmo and have parlayed him essentially into Kyle Tucker and Marcus Semien, you have improved 2 defensive positions and improved 1 offensive position.
I almost look at it as on the whole, like the aggregate, right? If you lose Pete, but you get Kyle Tucker, you upgraded your defense at a different position, and then you basically have a similar bat because of what, not from a power standpoint, but from an all around like on base standpoint. Kyle Tucker is your Pete Alonso replacement.
Yeah.
I've come around on the mentality that Jorge Polanco can be your Nimmo lineup replacement. And if he's like an every now and then first baseman and he just kind of alternates with with Vientos, then he and Vientos become your Winker or Marte and Nimmo replacements. And like, that's how you wing. I know like he barely played last year, but they didn't have really a DH all last season. So Polanco ends up being that. Then Simeon just kind of works as your Jeff McNeil replacement, which the bat may be a little worse, have a lower floor, but the glove has such a higher ceiling that you live with him being what'll probably end up being around a 7 or 8 hitter. And then you're hoping Brett Beatty and Francisco Alvarez and Carson Benz, like the younger homegrown players, find ways to be solid everyday players that contribute to the team. Mm-hmm. That's a good lineup if you sign a Kyle Tucker. And I'll just echo the same sentiment if you sign a Cody Bellinger. I would argue it's a better everyday team than it was last year if you sign Kyle Tucker.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's the kind of move, and we talked about this much more hypothetically in December, but now that it's at least somewhat more realistic, it's the kind of move where you're like, wait, okay, now I think I'm starting to get it, what they're doing, and it wasn't what we were afraid of, which was, when we did that 3 different plans pod last month. We were heavily leaning towards like, yeah, they're not going to try like that hard to compete. It's going to be like 2024 repeated, where everything had to go right that year for them to get to where they were. But if they were just like kind of like middle of the pack, I think they would have also been okay with that, and just blown the team up a year earlier than they did. So if they bring in Tucker, it's all of a sudden it's like, okay, hang on. Like now it's all making sense now.
Yep.
There will always be people who are going to be upset that Alonso or Nimmo or Diaz are gone. And we always say like they screwed up the Diaz thing. That wasn't part of this plan. And there'll always be people who just don't like David Stearns for whatever silly personal reason that they have. But I think it gets a lot of people off your backs, which is not a reason to do something. But a lot of people get off your backs because it would make them just like a much better baseball team potentially for 2026. So I don't know that I'm confident in it yet. I don't know where I'd put my is my meter like 15 to 20%, which is still pretty low potentially. But like, man, that would juice me up for kind of the first time for the 2026 season.
Rich, I think confidence meters. I loved our bit. I loved when we did that for the first 2 months, even though they meant nothing. I think they don't really mean anything at this point. The confidence we have in the front office, the lack of confidence we have in the front office, something's going to happen that something could happen that just we're not expecting. Like, I'm not expecting them to go out of their comfort zone to go sign a Kyle Tucker. I'm not expecting David Stearns to go out of his comfort zone to dedicate. Because here's the deal. If he wants Kyle Tucker, it sounds like he could go put an offer on the table that gets Kyle Tucker. Mm-hmm. I think he's determined to stick to a price, hence the word discipline that keeps coming up in every report about them. And my 0% or 1% confidence was always like, if it comes back to David Stearns' price, he's going to go to the Dodgers for that price. So it's going to require the guy who's only given out two contracts of more than 3 years that aren't Juan Soto. It's going to require, and that's the other part about this for David Stearns. You do this, according to the report that Cohen's really letting Stearns operate. You do this, that's you, man. Like, no one else gets to say anything different. Like me on a podcast, like what I say doesn't matter anymore about what you used to do. Now I can say, hey, you went and got Kyle Tucker. Like, I commend that, David Stearns. And it's David Stearns' team now. I can start to get behind a team that looks like this. if Kyle Tucker is in the outfield. We might have just spent 15 minutes on a player that's never going to play for the New York Mets, though. So
this is what happens when it's January and you do a weekly baseball podcast and the baseball offseason is slow as shit. So
yeah. Can I say something nice about David Stearns?
Please.
He didn't trade a fan favorite that was extended for 10 years. And after causing a rift in the clubhouse, that by moving the guy away from his natural position to DH, to then like asking the guy to go from DH to first base, and then trading him midseason and saying, no, it's this guy that we signed for 1 year. It's his team now. And then let that player walk in the offseason. That's what Craig Breslow did with the Red Sox. And it's why, like, I was listening to Section 10, the very famous Red Sox podcast today. David Stearns never made me say any of that. Like, once, like, I do believe he has an idea of what he's doing, even though I disagree with some of the plan. Rich, what happened with the Red Sox and Bregman, it very much seems like they didn't have a clear-cut plan. Like, they actually got caught with their pants down here. It's actually pretty embarrassing from a Red Sox front office standpoint.
It's pretty bad. I think there was a report out there that they did make an offer that was similar.
5,165. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's deferred money.
I think 75 million of his Cubs deals deferred. So it probably wasn't a deferral issue.
They just got outbid.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you're the Boston Red Sox. He was the guy on your team that's supposed to at least give you somewhat of a leg up. Although, you know, we know that that's not the end all be all. If you fart around a little bit, and Mets farted around with Edwin Diaz, and looks like the Red Sox kind of did the same thing with Alex Bregman. And to your point, they brought in Alex Bregman, which screwed up their entire relationship with Rafael Devers, wind up trading Devers, and then they don't even re-sign Bregman.
So now they have no Devers, no Bregman next year.
No Devers, no Bregman. Big problems. It's still like a decent team. I will actually say, while it obviously hurts the Mets a little bit that the Cubs just got better, they got actually a lot better this week because they also brought in Edward Cabrera earlier, which I'm sure we'll talk about a little bit too. But the Red Sox now kind of have egg on their face, and they clearly do have money to spend, and now are an unexpected suitor for Bo Bichette, who had been largely linked to the Phillies this past week. So did the Red Sox screwing this whole thing up actually help the Mets in the long run, because the Phillies might not be able to get Bo Bichette and he might go to Boston?
So this is where I want to continue with the theme of like nobody knows what's, because look, we had heard the Orioles had interest in Pete. I didn't know they were going to be the highest bidder for Pete Alonso. Like, the only team that I think has made sense in where they've gone based off of reporting is Diaz to the Dodgers. Because we had heard like right before that the Diaz had interest in the Dodgers, and that like he wanted to win a championship.
Right before. But even before that, for 2 months, all the reports are saying the Dodgers aren't really going to go there.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So like, what did they know until an hour before not even like 20 minutes before he signed was the first time it was like,
yeah,
what?
You know, my theory that Diaz was just like, so this is all I'll take. And they're like, really? That's it? The Mets aren't willing to go there? All right. Just, like Friedman was on a beach, like not at winter meetings, potentially.
Like a half-hearted
at winter meetings,
attempt.
like at Disney. It's like, wait a minute, we can have Diaz for what? Oh, here, sign that. We're good. We got to win Diaz now. Yeah, the Red Sox have a significantly higher uphill battle than the Mets do with PR within their fan base. Because look, at the end of the day, yes, you have Roman Anthony. Yes, you have like Garrett Crochet. You have some young, exciting players within the roster. The way that they botched the Devers Bregman thing now requires you to go fix it. And maybe that leads to the domino effect of they get Bo Bichette, Tucker ends up somewhere that would have been a Bichette suitor. The Blue Jays thing is so interesting because I thought they were interested in bringing back Bo. Then they signed Akamoto, so they're out of that. They also just signed Santander. I don't know where their outfield spot is for them to sign Kyle Tucker to the lengthy contract that it seems they were interested in. So I'm of the belief that I'm of the belief that it's going to surprise us where Kyle Tucker ends up. Like he ends up with the Phillies. He's their right field replacement. After Bo Bichette goes to the Red Sox, which means Cody Bellinger ends up with the Mets.
Apparently, their right field replacement is Adolis Garcia.
Yeah, I will believe that also and they
haven't even gotten rid of Castellanos yet, which we expect that they will.
That feels like a Marte thing where they're just like, nobody wants him, so we'll keep him on the roster. If it's so bad, it's his last year, we can DFA him. And
I just wonder if because he's had issues with the manager a bunch of times and he's expensive, if that changes that a little bit. Like Marte was at least a really good clubhouse guy. It wasn't a problem. Whereas this guy seems to fight publicly with Rob Thompson every year.
My point is more, he can come in and be a... Like you can make that decision to move on from Castellanos in April or May if he's not hitting and there's problems, right? And it's just the remainder of his last year. I wonder if they would because again, opportunistic, they would like to explore another lefty in that division. We spent about a half. Like Edward Cabrera ends up with the Cubs. I thought he was going to be a Yankee. He ends up going for Owen Casey. Who was the 47th ranked prospect. For any Mets fan that was interested in Edward Cabrera, the price seems like it would have been Jonah Tong, who was the number 46 ranked prospect, one above Casey. Now, this is an older list, so it hasn't fully been updated, but around there looks like it would have been the price, and I'm fine with Jonah Tong, just seeing what he turns out to be rather than Edward Cabrera, who's just never been healthy in the majors for an extended period of time. We're talking a lot over the first half an hour of the pod, Rich, about like maybe, and it could happen. And surprise, Bregman went there. Mm-hmm. As an off season, we said January is going to be crazy. Are you now more prepared for a crazy final 19 days of January, or are you just more confused about what January could end up being?
I think it will get crazy at some point just because spring training starts in 4 to 5 weeks. These guys need jobs. And they don't like being unsigned in the beginning of spring training because it starts their whole process late. And then you see guys who maybe can't make the opening day roster because of that. And then it carries over into the season sometimes. Like spring training is important, and as long as it is for a reason. So that does put a bit of a ticking clock on this whole thing at this point. So I don't think we're there yet, but I think back half of January, it's just something's going to have to give here. And guys are going to have to sign. And if there are teams that really need to trade guys and have just been holding on to those guys this whole time, they're going to have to concede a little bit at some point. So I don't think we're there yet, but I think we're getting closer.
I think this week we could see one big name pop off the list. Trevor May did a good video on his YouTube channel about why the offseason is so slow. There's also some very bad takes out there that they need to add a deadline for. That's just very pro owner. The owners should just wait until the deadline and then. Yeah,
you know how many 1 year like bullshit, like they would all just collude with each other, and then players would sign these awful contracts because that's all they like. That you think they're not going to manipulate that? It's like there's no way.
Yeah, the only way a deadline like that would work, like you have to sign somewhere by January 15th, or you have to sign a 1 year deal, is if you put in a salary floor for a payroll floor for the sport. Like if every owner has to reach $150 million, and as many owners that cry poor, like they're not, like if you can't spend $150 million on payroll, don't own a sports team. That's pretty much that simple.
Right.
If you put in that, and then guys it becomes like the NBA where they have multiple offers of a certain amount on the table. That I think could work, but just the way things exist now, to put in a floor because we're bored is just not a good reason. I wonder how bored we'll be a week from now is more my question,
Yeah. I just wish these teams and owners negotiated in good faith. And that was when the offseason used to be more fun and the winter meetings actually meant something.
Yeah.
Whereas, it feels like if you get 2 to 3 moves out of winter meetings, it feels like a big one. Like that was nothing back 10 years ago.
Yeah. Remember the winter meetings where the lockout was looming, right? The 2021 into 22. That's when the Mets signed, it was all consecutive. It was Escobar. It was Scherzer. It was
Canna,
Marte. It was Canna. It was just all of the above. They made all these moves. And then it felt like because there was an actual deadline and then Manfred was going to lock people out, a legitimate deadline was there. Now, a lot of guys said, we'll wait until the other side of the deadline because we're confident that there will be baseball this year because our union reps are telling us there will be baseball this year. But yeah, I'm not pro deadline unless you put some mandatory spending limits on the or floors on the owner groups too. So
yeah, I don't trust these billionaires to not just take the next shortcut and manipulate it. So I'd just leave it this way.
Yeah. And the alternative is just we wait and hopefully we do an emergency live stream this week that the Mets do something. Should we go live if Cody Bellinger and Kyle Tucker don't sign with the Mets? Either one. Once either one of them sign, should that be our next live stream?
I think when we get down to the last one, whichever one's left, and if they both sign elsewhere, I think maybe we could do one for the last one because it's the last of the holdout stars that you could maybe hope would come here are gone.
Yeah,
I think that could warrant a short live stream and vent session, a little live Mets therapy.
I don't think any of the live streams end up being short. With my experience with live streams, they're never short. Shout out to our wonderful audience, but
manifesting it then.
I am here as long as people want to contribute, Rich. I do recognize that an hour on we didn't sign Cody Bellinger can get tedious after a while. So we'll see what eventually happens.
Totally.
This is going to be a shorter episode this week. So I had one thing I wanted to bring up to you, if it's possible, Rich.
Okay.
So you tweeted out because the anniversary of the Francisco Lindor trade happened. And you tweeted out from the Just Mets account, quite possibly the best trade or greatest trade in Mets history. Mm-hmm. And you got some pushback from some people online. Now, let me be clear. You were the one that tweeted this out, right?
This was me.
Okay. So knowing or getting to know you throughout the last couple months as content partners, I've realized this can be something that gets sent out there sometimes. Like when you did the Justin Verlander's one of the worst signings in the last 5 years. And I was like, wouldn't make my top 5. But I recognize it's I had a thought, I said it. So I decided, can I actually pitch you what are the 5 greatest trades in Mets history, Rich?
I think they're pretty easy, probably.
So let me go through the candidates. Okay. So Gary Carter is an obvious one. Keith Hernandez is an obvious one. Mike Piazza is an obvious one. Then Lindor. Those are the big 4 that I think you have to consider as the top 4. It's trading for 4 Hall of Famers / borderline Hall of Famers.
5 is easy for me.
So candidates for 5 are Cespedes, Johan Santana, Carlos Delgado, Don Clendenin. I had to add this to the list, but Edwin Diaz, recognizing didn't look like a good trade in the process, but they won that trade in hindsight. And then R.A. Dickey, technically, you got a catcher that was on your team that made the World Series and your Game 3 starter that started a wild card game for you in that trade in Syndergaard and Darno. These are the trades I think are the candidates to make any top 5 list. So how would you order your greatest trades in Mets history now that I've given you a list to actually put in order?
Oh boy.
Do you have an idea of what your one is? So would Lindor be your one?
I think you can make the argument based on just like the crazy war that he's had, the immediate impact he's had, and the fact that it turns out they didn't give up anything for him. The best player they gave up for him isn't even on Cleveland anymore. He's like a decent kind of like part-time player, 9-hitter for the Blue Jays. And Andres Jimenez, nobody else from that trade really has done anything. I think you make that argument.
One of the other guys, hold on. One of the other guys from that trade is a Yankee now, and they look at that as a big acquisition. Ahmed Rosario.
Oh my God, I forgot he was in that trade.
Yep.
That's right.
I couldn't name you anybody else that was in the trade, by the way. I just know Ahmed Rosario and Andres Jimenez.
And Josh Wolf was a minor league pitcher who at the time some people liked. I don't even know what happened to him.
Yeah.
To be honest, I've not followed up too much. I think you make that as a pretty good argument. I'm obviously, without the stats in front of me, it's hard to just do it on vibes, especially when half these players got traded to the Mets before I was born, or when I was just too young to be watching. So for me to be like, Lindor is definitely higher than Keith and Gary, and those two guys led to a title, I don't think I could confidently rank that right now. I would actually prefer to have some like stats in front of me. Okay. So I'm abstaining. Okay. So then let me give you what was your 5B as of now? And then I'll give you what my list would be. I think it's between Cespedes and Santana. And I think just solely for the fact that Cespedes got them to a World Series, I'm going to give it to him, even though Santana was on the team longer, no hitter. Obviously, like the WAR is going to be higher just because he was here for longer than Cespedes was. But I will give Cespedes it's the best trade deadline acquisition in Mets history, and probably one of the best trade deadline guys ever in the history of baseball.
So you bring up a good point that there's in-season trades, and then there's like deadline, or there's off-season trades. And like Piazza was an in-season trade that they then had to re-sign him. Cespedes was an in-season trade that they then had to re-sign him. Everybody else largely was an off-season acquisition that they made. Although Lindor was a guy that they had to extend, which they ended up obviously doing. I think you have to go a combination one or two with Gary and Keith. The respectability that both of them brought to a franchise that was looking for respectability, and it led to one of the 2 championships in the franchise's history. Gary Carter made the Hall of Fame. Keith Hernandez should be a Hall of Famer. Maybe this Veterans Committee eventually puts him in. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I would go them 1 and 2. Then I look, just to defend you and the tweet, like I think Lindor Piazza is a very fascinating conversation. I would lean. I can't believe I'm. No. I would lean Piazza over Lindor, and that's 3 and 4. And then I gotta be honest. It really depends what means more to you: the no-hitter or the World Series, like losing the World Series. Because the Mets had made the World Series before in my life and lost. They had literally never pitched a no-hitter outside of that one that Johan pitched, even though Anthony DeComo likes to remind people that like Beltran doubled in the middle of that game.
Who cares?
Yeah. Oh, no, believe me, I don't care. Like Andres Galarraga did not throw a perfect game. The umpires have to be perfect too.
Yeah.
I would lean Cespedes too as well, because the August, September, first 3 weeks of October stretch is the second most I've ever enjoyed the Mets. yeah, the only reason, like, I had to put Diaz on it because, like, as much as it's annoying he left, and as much as the 2019 season happened, I have so many big saves from Diaz. Like 2022, he was just automatic. Him coming in to close out the NLDS against the Phillies, and the fact that he Kyle Schwarber never got a hit off of him. Yeah, that's the direction I would go with my 5, though. I would have Diaz as like an honorable mention at 7 or 8. So,
yeah, you almost like, I weirdly, like, Diaz was here so long, I almost like forget that they traded for him. And another one to argue for it is that everybody peed their pants at the time that Jared Kelenic got traded. Mm-hmm. And I mean, that guy wound up being a total nothing burger. He couldn't even kill the Mets on the Braves. That's how you know he doesn't have the sauce.
He was on the Mets. He was on the Braves in 2024 too, right? Like, he was on the Braves 2 years ago.
Yeah, he was there for 2 seasons, I think.
Okay, I wanted to make sure I remembered this right. He came up for the Braves, if I remember right, during that game 161. And I remember thinking this would actually be perfect, that this very special Mets season ends at the hands and on the swing from Jared Kelenic.
Everybody was thinking that.
Everybody was waiting for it. It's why I was wondering if Kelenic was going to come up in the 9th inning against Diaz, and you'd have Kelenic against Diaz with a playoff spot on the line. Thankfully, we didn't have to worry about that.
Yeah. By the way, I just quickly took a look at, just the debate between Lindor and Piazza is that, again, WAR is not the end all be all stat. Lindor already is almost 4 wins above Piazza despite playing on the Mets for less time.
That's great. Mike Piazza was a more valuable Met than Francisco Lindor. I understand what WAR is saying. In Piazza's defense, he was a DH playing catcher back then. What Mike Piazza was to the middle of the Mets lineup for 98, 99, 2000 was one of the most imposing forces in all of the sport. And we've really only gotten that once when he was an MVP candidate for Lindor. So yeah, when Lindor eventually makes the Hall of Fame, but when Lindor makes the Hall of Fame, I think it'll be a different thing. Lindor's story's still not yet finished. So like, there's room for Lindor to rack up even more wins and playoff appearances, and like him and Soto tag teaming to lead the Mets into deep playoff runs. He has not eclipsed Mike Piazza in my mind yet.
I just think it's a conversation. That's all.
I agree that it's a conversation.
Francisco Lindor is not, all due respect, is not using steroids.
Not proven.
It's fine.
Neither way is proven by the.
I'm not an anti-Piazza guy. It's just, I have less of an emotional attachment because
you weren't here watching him. He was the first Met I ever liked. Yeah.
Yeah, I had a poster of him, but I wasn't watching games yet. The first Mets game I ever went to in person was Piazza returning for the first time with the Padres.
Okay. Got it. Yeah. That's what we've talked about this. 05, 06 is like where my
true like starting entry point.
Yeah. So I Wright's your guy. And
yeah,
my first memory, my version of like my first Mets game is Mets Braves in 98 in September, when Piazza took Glavine deep to give the Mets a 2-1 lead in a game they won 2-1 during a playoff race that they eventually lost at the hands of the Atlanta Braves. But yeah, I'm not having a steroid conversation on the pod.
No,
Mike Piazza, if the DH was in the National League back then, would have been. We'd be talking about him like we talk about David Ortiz, because he was one of the best hitters in the sport for like 8 to 9 years, and then his body broke down like most catchers in their 30s.
Yeah, best hitting catcher ever.
Easily the best hitting catcher ever. And that's with what the guy in Seattle did, Cal Raleigh did last season. So
yeah, I mean, at least you could say about Lindor and Piazza that they are both each the best player at their position in the history of the team.
Of the franchise, yes. I think the only leg up you then, if you're looking for a tiebreaker that you give Piazza, is that he then goes to the best hitting catcher at his position ever, like of anybody. Whereas Lindor, I'm ready to stir the pot a bit and be like, well, Lindor or Jeter, who are you taking as a hitter? You know,
stats are closer.
Then I'll argue your war, Rich.
Now that it is convenient for you.
Exactly. Yeah, but look at his war.
Yeah, let's pull out the war.
Derek Jeter has more big hits in like before he turned 25 than Lindor has in his career so far. So unfortunately, it's still that those are the tiebreakers that I think matter to me. I know we're gonna get a DM from somebody that doesn't watch baseball and just refreshes the internet that will say that those moments don't matter. The numbers do, but yeah. To all the John Boy fans who are here in the comment, leave a comment. Tell us how mad you are at us. Tell us how stupid we are. Yes.
And help us in the algorithm.
Please, the algorithm. We'd love it. We'd love that interaction. Shout out BB, my buddy. I think that's it. We had a lazy river ending to the pod, but your tweet incited me to do a little research. So I'm
glad that my tweets can still incite you.
It does. Yeah. Listen, not much of the Mets news lately is inciting me because I'm over the Mets have talked to, Mets are in on, Mets are interested in reports. We'll see if we actually get some news regarding the Mets this week. Any final thoughts before we get out of here, Rich?
No, just do something.
No. Hey, just me neither.
It's the meme of the guy with the stick poking and says, just do something. Okay.
Confidence meter, everybody watching. This is your call in the comments. Confidence meter percentage. What percentage would you put that Rich's tree is behind him when we record next? Okay. That's your confidence meter question. Put it in the comments. My thanks to everybody watching. My thanks to Rich as always. We will be back with a Patreon episode later this week. They're announcing the Hall of Fame candidates. It looks like a former Met is going to a very prominent Met, one of the biggest free agent signings in Mets history, and Carlos Beltran might get in on the ballot this year. It will be interesting to see what cap he is wearing when he goes in. But we'll be putting that episode up on Patreon later this week. And then if the Mets do anything, we will go live and talk about it. But until next time, thank you everybody for tuning in to another edition of the Just Mets podcast. If you dug the show, please like this video. Remember to subscribe. If you're listening, let me check. Did people leave ratings on Apple Podcasts? I will read them if people left ratings. But all this to say, if you like the show and you're listening, leave a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts or on Spotify. We're on social at Just Mets. Look for all the stuff there. No ratings. You guys stink. Come on. Leave a 5-star rating and a review. I will read it right here on the pod. And then on Patreon, like I said, we have a bonus episode coming later this week. And for free, you can sign up for the Just Mets newsletter, writing 5 days a week. These guys are brilliant and keeping you entertained during a very slow off season. Thank you, everybody. Until next time, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Let's go Mets. And in the words of the immortal Gary Cohen, we are out of here.